Have you ever wondered why fear seems to dominate you at crucial moments? The answer might not be what you expect. Jesus didn't just understand human fears. He offered profound solutions to overcome them. Maybe what you need isn't more control over your life, but rather a radical trust in his teachings. And to be honest, most people have never explored these powerful lessons in a practical way. They keep living in anxiety, not realizing that the answer is right in front of them. In this content, you're going to discover the most transformative teachings of Jesus to face any fear. Get ready, because what you're about to learn may challenge everything you thought you knew about facing difficulties. Imagine living without the weight of anxiety, without the terror of the unknown, simply trusting fully in what Jesus taught us. Does that sound impossible? It's not. And the most incredible part? You can start applying this today. Are you ready for this transformation? 1. The truth sets you free. Jesus taught us that the truth has a transformative power that few truly understand. It's not just about knowing facts, but courageously facing reality. When you allow yourself to live in the truth, all the lies, fears, and deceptions lose their strength. Picture yourself leaving behind the chains of false beliefs or bad habits. Truth has this ability to tear down the veil and expose what truly matters. Do you feel that any area of your life needs this kind of clarity? How often do we let fear take over simply because we're trapped in lies we tell ourselves? Jesus' truth goes beyond what we can see. It touches the essence of who we are and what we believe. When you understand this, something shifts within you. Start with a simple reflection. What lie are you holding on to today that needs to be set free? By doing so, you pave the way for spiritual growth and a stronger faith. Transformation happens when we allow ourselves to confront what troubles us. A practical action would be to take time today to pray and ask for wisdom to see the truth in difficult situations. It's not easy to face what we've been avoiding, but the freedom that comes with it is indescribable. Jesus calls us to live with purpose, and often that begins with the simple act of admitting the truth. Have you ever thought about how different your life could be by opening yourself to this? 2. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Jesus reminds us that the future belongs to God, and living in anxiety about what's to come only robs us of today's peace. He calls us to trust entirely in his plan, knowing that every detail is already in his hands. How many times do we worry about situations that, in the end, never even happen? It's like carrying a weight that was never ours to bear. Jesus teaches us to live in the present, placing our trust in divine care. Anxiety is a constant struggle for many, especially when we look at the future with uncertainty. But Jesus invites us to rest in the certainty that God has already prepared the way. This doesn't mean we should be passive, but rather learn to balance our faith with our actions, without letting fear control our decisions. A good exercise to manage anxiety is to take moments of deep prayer, handing over daily worries to God. When we truly trust, anxiety loses its power over us. Try today to make a small list of things that worry you, and then give each of them to God in prayer. Gradually, you'll notice how the act of trusting God relieves your mind and heart. And it's in this trust that we find the strength to face even the worst storms in life, as we will see in Jesus' next teaching. 3. Jesus walks on water. The story of Jesus walking on water teaches us the power of faith in the midst of chaos. When Peter kept his eyes fixed on Jesus, he too walked on the sea. But as soon as he was distracted by the wind and the waves, he began to sink. This episode is a clear reminder that even in the worst storms, when we focus on Christ, he lifts us up. Think of how many times you've felt yourself sinking in worries simply because you lost focus on what truly matters. Life brings many unexpected storms, but it's in faith that we find the strength to keep walking, even when everything seems to fall apart. Jesus calls us not to be swayed by fear, but to trust that He is always by our side, ready to lift us up. A practical way to apply this teaching is to choose a verse or prayer that reminds you daily to keep your focus on Jesus, especially in difficult moments. When the storm feels too intense, remember that the secret lies in where you place your gaze. If you look at the waves, fear will consume you. But if you keep your eyes on Jesus, you will find peace and strength to carry on. And it's this trust that leads us to the next teaching, where Jesus shows us how to have peace in the midst of storms. 4. Peace in the midst of the storm. The true peace that Jesus offers does not depend on the circumstances around us. He shows us that even in the greatest storms, we can find tranquility if we trust in God. This peace is not the absence of problems, but the certainty that God is in control of everything. Imagine facing your toughest challenges knowing that deep down, your soul is at peace because you fully trust in the divine plan. Often, we seek peace in external things, whether in a moment of rest or a quick solution to our problems. However, Jesus teaches us that true peace comes from within, from our trust in Him. A practical way to cultivate this peace is by developing the habit of gratitude, even in the midst of difficulties. When we focus on blessings, we realize that God never abandons us, even in the worst storms. This inner peace changes how we face life's adversities. When we trust in God, we begin to see challenges as opportunities for growth, not as threats. And this trust leads us to the next teaching, where Jesus, as the Good Shepherd, guides and protects us every step of the way. 5. The Good Shepherd. Jesus describes Himself as the Good Shepherd, the one who guides and protects us at all times. Even when we can't see the way ahead, He is there, leading us down the best path. Just as a shepherd cares for his sheep, Jesus cares for each of us with love and attention. Often we feel lost, without direction, but He is always present, dispelling our fears and uncertainties. Trusting Jesus as our shepherd gives us the security that we are never alone, even in the most difficult moments. He guides us with wisdom and patience, and it's up to us to learn to listen to His voice, even when the world's distractions try to pull us away. A practical way to practice this daily is to seek moments of silence and prayer, where we can reconnect with this gentle voice that guides us in every decision. This trust completely changes how we face the future. By remembering that Jesus is in control, our fears dissipate, and we can move forward with courage. And it's exactly this courage, generated by faith, that leads us to the next teaching, where Jesus compares faith to the power of a mustard seed. 6. Faith like a mustard seed. Jesus teaches us that faith, even as small as a mustard seed, has the power to move mountains. It doesn't matter how big your faith is, but where it is placed. Often, we think we need grand faith to overcome life's challenges, but Jesus shows us that even the smallest expression of trust in Him can produce miracles. Think of a time when you believed, even for a moment, and something unexpected happened. Faith is not about what we see or feel, but about trusting in the invisible. When we plant this mustard seed in our hearts, it grows and sustains us through adversity. To cultivate this faith daily, try setting aside a few minutes to read about Jesus' miracles and reflect on how He has already worked in your life. This helps strengthen trust and hope, even in the most difficult situations. The greatness of faith lies in its simplicity. Small acts of trust in God can lead to transformations we never imagined. And this faith frees us from fear because we know that even when things seem impossible, God is at work. This understanding prepares us for the next teaching, where Jesus shows us the transformative power of humility. 7. The power of humility. Humility, in the eyes of Jesus, is one of the greatest spiritual powers we can have. When we are humble, we make room for God to act in our lives, recognizing that we can't do everything on our own. Instead of relying solely on our own strength, humility teaches us to depend on God and accept His guidance in every step. Think about how often pride prevents us from asking for help or acknowledging our limitations. Humility also frees us from fear. When we understand that we don't have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, we are able to surrender our worries to God and trust that He knows what's best. This doesn't mean we stop acting, but that we act with the certainty that we are not alone on this journey. A simple practice of humility is to reflect daily on our actions and seek to correct what is necessary, always with an open heart for change. This power of personal transformation through humility opens doors that pride could never open. Through humility, we grow spiritually and learn to forgive, as Jesus teaches in the next point, where forgiveness becomes a path to true liberation. 8. Forgiveness that liberates. Jesus teaches us that forgiveness has the power to set us free, both from hurt and fear. When we forgive, we break the emotional chains that keep us bound to the past, allowing peace to take the place of pain. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but of spiritual strength. Think of how liberating it would be to let go of what weighs on your heart, making room for a lighter and more God-connected life. Forgiving isn't easy, but it's one of the most powerful acts we can practice. Jesus calls us to forgive from the heart, not just for others, but for ourselves. When we choose forgiveness, we free ourselves from bitterness and take a step towards spiritual healing. A way to begin this process is to pray for the one who hurt you, asking God to heal that wound and give you the strength to move forward. This act of forgiving transforms us deeply. It connects us directly with God's love and prepares us to live a life full of grace and peace. By understanding the power of forgiveness, we open doors to new opportunities and a future free of grudges, fully living out what Jesus has called us to be. Now that you know the most powerful teachings of Jesus to overcome any fear, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you let fear continue to control you, or will you apply these lessons to your life and bring about real change? Think about this. How would your life look if you trusted more, if you gave your worries to God and let His peace guide your steps? The invitation is made, but the choice is yours. If you want to keep learning and growing stronger, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any of the upcoming content that can transform your life and your faith. Don't just sit back. Start applying these teachings today and watch God's power work in your life.